Welcome back, my little droplets. So today I am coloring in this mushroom landscape that I had on my mind for a couple days. So I'm going in with a purple Copic marker to outline the skyline, if you will. I'm using this as like the shading because I'm trying to stay away from grays and blacks to do shading so that it doesn't make the drawing dull. So I'll tell you how I originally got this idea. A couple weeks ago, I was out in the garden and I noticed something that kind of looked like eggs to me. And I was telling my mom, like, come look at these eggs in our garden. Obviously, we didn't know whether they were from birds, from snakes, or whatever. And turns out, as I'm watering, I see that it's not an egg, but it is the head of a mushroom sticking out from the ground. So that's how I got inspired to do the mushrooms. So at first I had the mushrooms drawn, and I'm like, what else should go in? And I thought it was funny, like the bunny proposing with the carrot, because obviously bunnies eat carrots. And if you see on the ground, that little hole is where he dug up the carrot to give to her. He took the best of the best to give to his lovely partner. It wouldn't be a marriage proposal without them looking dressed to the nines, so I have them both dressed up. The only thing that's really missing here is a manicure and pedicure. In order to achieve the look of the buildings, I used 3 different blues. As you can see, the buildings in the far distance have the lightest blue used, and that's to represent that as we look off into the distance, there's less clarity of things, so the blue should be dull in this case. And as you come closer and to the audience or the viewer, things are more clear. So you'll see darker buildings. So using these 3 different blues helps achieve some depth into the image that I was really trying to go for. And you see me again picking up that purple marker to indicate where the darker spots are going to be. And that little circle I've drawn on the sketchbook is to represent where the light source is coming from. So you'll see on the left side, the shadow is on the left, and on the right side, the shadow is on the right because the sun is like in the middle. I decided I wanted to keep a tight color palette. So for her top, I used red because that's the complementary color to green to create a shadow, and then I put the green on top of it. This is also like an homage, if you will, to the carrots that I'm using because her top is supposed to reflect the green leafy part, and then the bottom is supposed to be the actual carrot. So I thought that was kind of cute. And you'll see me lay down a layer of blue as well as yellow before I go over the orange. This is to give some depth to the coloring. So blue is a complementary color to orange because on the color wheel it's across from it. So that should enable it to achieve a dark color when you go over an orange. And yellow is an analogous color, and here I'm just using that as the highlight. I contrast this with his tuxedo. I don't lay down complementary colors first because I want to see, is there really a difference? And at least in my opinion, I think his orange looks flat in comparison to hers. Hers pops a bit more. So using the color wheel and color theory does work here. So as I'm going in to color the dirt, you'll see me switch to a different alcohol marker. I'm using the Copics. I have the skin tone, and that's what I'm using because they give you a wide range from peach to like darker skin tones with brown, and that's what I'm using. And usually the first layer of color is a little bit streaky, but since this is supposed to be like the dirt and the mud, I kind of like the streaky aspect of it because it gives it some texture, so I'm not too worried about it. So whenever I'm coloring anything, there's 2 things I'm wanting to keep in mind. 1, where the light source coming from, because that will inform us of where our shadows need to go. And 2, the things closest to us have the most detail. So you'll see me going in with a darker brown closer to the front. And there is some in the back, but it's going to be heavily focused in the front because that is where the most detail would be. As I'm using the darkest brown, I'm being careful to only put it in specific places where like the core shadow would go because it's dark and I don't want it to be overpowering. Now that I'm satisfied with how the mud came out, I'm transitioning over to the grass. And again, I'm trying to use complementary colors to really bring this drawing to life. This is the only time I was saying, it didn't work. I don't know what it is about the red that I laid down here. Maybe it's too pink in undertone or what, but it was just too obvious even when I went over it with the green, so that was kind of upsetting to me. But anyway, we push on, and mistakes happened, as Bob Ross says, happy little accidents. So I persevered. So far, everything was looking kind of realistic with the color choices that I had been selecting, but I was struggling on what I wanted to color the mushrooms because, as you can see, there's two different types of mushrooms, predominantly those ones that have like those domes that are like circular and curved on the top, and the other ones which are more, I want to say, triangle-ish and kind of remind me of a coconut plant. As I'm sure you noticed, there was a big jump, but I decided I wanted to change the direction of where I was going with this and mainly do red tops for all of them. And it was like over 30 minutes of video that I had to cut out because I just couldn't make up my mind on how I wanted these mushrooms to look like. And also I'm using like colored pencil as I go in over them for like more fine details, because there's some depth that you just cannot get with markers alone. The one thing that I am trying to avoid as I'm coloring this is having two colors that are similar in hue and value right next to each other, because they blend in and then you can't really tell where one begins and where the other one ends, and that's something that I do want to avoid. So my initial vision for this guy was to do like a sunset scene where I'm doing reds, oranges, and yellows, but it didn't quite come out, and I think part of the problem is where I have the yellow clouds behind the red mushroom, it does kind of compete for the competition of where the viewer's eye should be, and I want it to be mainly focused on the proposal scene, and the sunset just brought it too much towards the top of the page and away from the character, so I do have to scrap that idea. I will show you how what it was looking like. So as you can see, it is very bright, but it just wasn't what I was going for. And then I tried to go over with personal colors that I recently got, but then that was just too dark. And so lastly, in my last resort, I'm like, let me pull out these acrylic markers. Thankfully, acrylic can go over pretty much anything, so I was able to go over the waxy film left by the Prismacolors. And you'll see me using two different colors, one a lighter blue and one a darker blue. Unfortunately, I don't have the names of these colors since they are just some random dot markers that I found on the internet, but they work, and I like the result that I am getting from them. So I just skipped ahead for you guys so you wouldn't have to see me coloring in the blue. But then I decided I'm going to actually have the lower half be blackened because this is introducing the night hall. And there still is some of that lighter blue that I'm leaving in there so that it just has a little bit more depth to the sky. I always knew that the bunnies were going to be some shade of brown, but I left this out to the very end because, as you can see, they're quite close to the mushrooms, which are also a neutral tone, and I was kind of worried that they would blend into the background, and to an extent they kind of do, but I am going to rectify this at the very end with a white marker, and they're going to look like stickers. Either you're going to hate it or you're going to love it, and there's not going to be an in-between, but I'm actually kind of happy with the result, so hopefully you guys will be too. So with this white Uniball pen, I'm giving them an outline which makes them look like stickers and they pop out from the background, so there's no competing going on. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out so you guys get a good idea of how the overall composition is. Hope you guys enjoyed, and stay cool, my little droplets. Until next time, bye.